47. Involuntary Bliss.
The previous chapter, The Vision and the Enigma, set the stage for something big. Zarathustra told us that he is plagued by a very scary thought, which he called his abysmal thought, that is threatening to destroy his worldview and his happiness. But the vision also showed him that if he manages to overcome the problem it poses, he will achieve hitherto unknown peaks of joy. We weren't told what the abysmal thought is. Is he now going to reveal it?
With such enigmas and bitterness in his heart did Zarathustra sail o'er the sea. When, however, he was 4 day journeys from the Happy Isles and from his friends, then had he surmounted all his pain. Triumphantly, and with firm foot, did he again accept his fate, and then talked Zarathustra in this wise to his exulting conscience.
Well, it looks like Zarathustra, who is still on the ship, achieved self-surpassing. His usual happiness returned. What happened? Did he overcome the abysmal thoughts?
Alone am I again, and like to be so, alone with the pure heaven and the open sea, and again is the afternoon around me. On an afternoon did I find my friends for the first time. On an afternoon also did I find them a second time, at the hour when all light becometh stiller. For whatever happiness is still on its way twixt heaven and earth, now seeketh for lodging a luminous soul. With happiness hath all light now become stiller.
No, turns out there was no self-surpassing. Zarathustra simply overcame his bad mood. It is afternoon time, symbolizing a time when he doesn't see things in a dark way, but also not in the harshest light. He is not brooding about the abysmal thought, but lets his mind think about lighter things, allowing happiness to return to his heart. He is going alone on an adventure, the thing that he enjoys the most, and the happiness that he feels makes him stay in this afternoon mode.
O afternoon of my life, once did my happiness also descend to the valley that it might seek a lodging. Then did it find those open, hospitable souls. O afternoon of my life, what did I not surrender that I might have one thing, this living plantation of my thoughts, and this dawn of my highest hope? Companions did the creating one once seek, and children of his hope, and lo, it turned out that he could not find them, except he himself should first create them.
Zarathustra realizes that the afternoon is usually when he finds his happiness, and also that he is now in the afternoon of his life, the happiest time, when he is no longer young but not yet old. He thinks back and remembers how he came down from the mountain in search of friends in which he can instill his thoughts. But he realized that such men don't exist, and he has to create them.
Thus am I in the midst of my work, to my children going, and from them returning. For the sake of his children must Zarathustra perfect himself. For in one's heart one loveth only one's child and one's work, and where there is great love to oneself, then is it the sign of pregnancy. So have I found it. Still are my children verdant in their first spring, standing nigh one another, and shaken in common by the winds, the trees of my garden and of my best soil. And verily, where such trees stand beside one another, there are happy isles.
The thing is, Zarathustra has been referring to them as his friends, but actually, they were never friends. Not in the sense he talked about in the discourse titled The Friend, anyway. We never saw any of them challenging his ideas and coming up with ideas of their own. They may have been good companions, but at the end of the day, they were merely disciples. Zarathustra here refers to them as his children, which is more apt. They were the ones who were transformed by his ideas, the fertile ground in which he planted his ideas as seeds, and he hopes that one day they will bear fruit. They may not be there just yet, but they are already grown enough to fill him with fatherly pride and happiness. Furthermore, they challenge him to perfect himself, to be an even greater inspiration.
But one day will I take them up, and put each by itself alone, that it may learn lonesomeness and defiance and prudence. Gnarled and crooked, and with flexible hardness shall it then stand by the sea, a living lighthouse of unconquerable life. Yonder, where the storms rush down into the sea, and the snout of the mountain drinketh water, shall each on a time have his day and night watches, for his testing and recognition.
Before they can bear fruit, before they come up with ideas of their own and surpass his ideas, they have to go through the same journey he went through, the journey of walking alone in the wilderness, and going through spiritual tests and experimentations. Now that he is alone again, he realizes that he will have to prod them to do the same.
Recognized and tested shall each be, to see if he be of my type and lineage, if he be master of a long will, silent even when he speaketh, and giving in such wise that he taketh in giving, so that he may one day become my companion, a fellow creator and fellow enjoyer with Zarathustra, such a one as writeth my will on my tables for the fuller perfection of all things.
Now he is talking about them becoming actual friends. Not all of them will pass the test, but those who will be worthy friends and adversaries on the journey to higher perfection. This is actually something new. Zarathustra never spoke of perfection before. The Superman is an ideal being, but he didn't call him perfect. He moved away from this utopian idea of the Superman for a while, but then, in the chapter titled Redemption, we saw him talking to a community of disabled people, and claiming that they are a metaphor for all of humanity, since every contemporary human is disabled in some way, compared to what they could be. This is when he started thinking about perfecting humanity, and the idea of the Superman crept back in. The perfection of humanity, however, is beyond his powers. This is why he needs friends, fellow creators, who would work along with him, and continue his work after he is gone.
And for his sake, and for those like him, must I perfect myself. Therefore do I now avoid my happiness, and present myself to every misfortune, for my final testing and recognition. And verily, it were time that I went away, and the wanderer's shadow and the longest tedium and the stillest hour have all said unto me, it is the highest time. The word blew to me through the keyhole and said, Come. The door sprang subtly open unto me and said, Go.
The project, then, is to achieve perfection. Zarathustra talks about perfecting himself, which hints that the ideal is no longer the Superman, but something else, a way in which even contemporary humans can achieve perfection. To discover that way, he must give up on the happiness he felt in the Happy Isles and put himself through the ringer once again. He mentions the moments that pushed him to do so, the wanderer's shadow, which was mentioned in Great Events, the longest tedium, which probably refers to what he talked about in the Night Song, and the stillest hour from the chapter by that name. They were all expressions of his subconscious telling him that the time has come to take this journey.
But I lay enchained to my love for my children. Desire spread this snare for me, the desire for love, that I should become the prey of my children and lose myself in them. Desiring, that is now for me to have lost myself. I possess you, my children. In this possessing shall everything be assurance and nothing desire.
Zarathustra admits that the reason why it took him so long to answer the call was that he didn't want to leave his disciples, his children. He admonishes himself for desiring their companionship. Desiring is a way to lose yourself, which goes against his ethos. Instead, he must feel possessive over them, feel like whatever they do is an extension of himself, and he can never lose them.
But brooding lay the son of my love upon me, in his own juice stewed Zarathustra, then did shadows and doubts fly past me. For frost and winter I now longed. Oh, that frost and winter would again make me crack and crunch, sighed I. Then arose icy mist out of me. My past burst its tomb, many pains buried alive woke up. Fully slept had they merely, concealed in corpse clothes.
Hence, he preferred to remain in the warmth of his happiness among his children, and do not heed the signs telling him he has to go. But the signs kept coming. The frost and winter metaphor is from the night song. The past bursting into his tomb metaphor is from the soothsayer.
So called everything unto me in signs. It is time. But I heard not, until at last mine abyss moved, and my thought bit me. Ah, abysmal thought, which art my thought? When shall I find strength to hear thee burrowing and no longer tremble? To my very throat throbbeth my heart when I hear thee burrowing. Thy muteness even is like to strangle me, thou abysmal mute one.
Eventually, it was his abysmal thought that made him get up and leave. He knows he will have to face it. The problem is, it refuses to come up to the surface, to enter his consciousness. It just keeps on bothering him deep down, without clearly presenting itself. And Zarathustra is too afraid of it to try to actively bring it to the surface.
As yet have I never ventured to call thee up. It hath been enough that I have carried thee about with me. As yet have I not been strong enough for my final lion wantonness and playfulness. Sufficiently formidable unto me hath thy weight ever been. But one day shall I yet find the strength and the lion's voice which will call thee up. When I shall have surmounted myself therein, then will I surmount myself also in that which is greater, and a victory shall be the seal of my perfection.
First, he must overcome the fear of the abysmal thought, and call it up from the subconscious into his conscious mind. Then he will have to overcome the thought itself through self-surpassing. Once he does that, he believes, he will achieve perfection.
Meanwhile do I sail along on uncertain seas. Chance flattereth me, smooth-tongued chance. Forward and backward do I gaze. Still see I no end. And yet hath the hour of my final struggle not come to me, or doth it come to me perhaps just now? Verily, with insidious beauty do sea and life gaze upon me round about.
Until he is ready for that battle, he continues on his spiritual journey, in which he does battle with other thoughts. But there is also a chance that the abysmal thought, as thoughts do, will burst into his conscious mind unannounced. It might come at any moment, and Zarathustra is constantly living with this fear.
O afternoon of my life, O happiness before eventide, O haven upon high seas, O peace in uncertainty, how I distrust all of you. Verily distrustful am I of your insidious beauty, like the lover am I, who distrusteth too sleek smiling. As he pusheth the best beloved before him, tender even in severity, the jealous one, so do I push this blissful hour before me.
In the meantime, he is happy, enjoying this afternoon bliss that befell him. But he distrusts this bliss, knowing that the abysmal thought is lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce.
Away with thee, thou blissful hour! With thee hath there come to me an involuntary bliss. Ready for my severest pain do I here stand. At the wrong time hast thou come. Away with thee, thou blissful hour! Rather harbour there with my children. Hasten and bless them before eventide with my happiness. There already approacheth eventide. The sun sinketh. Away, my happiness!
The afternoon time, feels Zarathustra, is about to pass, replaced by the night of suffering he has to go through. And he is ready for it. He asks his bliss to go and be with his children, and leave him be. He has moved away from the happy isles because he wants to have that battle with the abysmal thought, overcome it, and pave the way for his children.
Thus spake Zarathustra, and he waited for his misfortune the whole night, but he waited in vain. The night remained clear and calm, and happiness itself came nigher and nigher unto him. Towards morning, however, Zarathustra laughed to his heart, and said mockingly, Happiness runneth after me. That is because I do not run after women. Happiness, however, is a woman.
Zarathustra is a man who has worked on himself to better himself. As a result, he is naturally happy. Even when he doesn't want to be, Happiness chases him and descends upon him, and refuses to leave him. He is waiting for the abysmal thought to come up and vanquish his happiness, but the thought fails to come. He is still happy. We had a brush with the abysmal thought in The Vision and the Enigma, where it was presented as an allegory about a shepherd choking due to a serpent crawling into his mouth. But this is vague. When is the thought going to come up in its naked form? This is what Zarathustra is wondering. In the meantime, the thought has receded back into the nether regions of his subconscious, leaving him to go on his merry way. He shall now proceed on his journey, thinking other thoughts, until the inevitable showdown.